If you don't know, I have been single for like 10 years. And I say that with a little asterisk because it doesn't mean that there's been no one in my life, right? There was 5 years ago, I think was my last really big fling, which was 7 months. It was 3 years ago when my last kind of fling was, which was only 2.5, 3 months. And then it was 10 years since my last like official relationship. I have decided that I'm going to take my own medicine and get back into the dating world, which is both scary and exciting because I also have to face the part of me that like doesn't want to participate, right? Like the part of me that thinks that if I just embody it, it'll just come to me. But the truth is like no one's knocking at my door to marry me. That's not what's ever going to happen. And it doesn't matter how much energy I embody or my feminine I lean into or whatever. Until I actually lean into my sovereign participation, I will never have the things that I deeply desire. And so not dating is also a way of me avoiding the internal work required to be in a relationship. Because at this point in my life, I have hit a wall where it's just intimacy avoidance, right? And intimacy avoidance is actually just the intimacy of self. I'm really clear on. And so this year was like, okay, I'm going to consciously make friends. I'm going to consciously date and I'm going to expand my horizons because it doesn't work for me to be all solo dolo anymore. Cool, right? Yeah. So I started playing with a bunch of different dating apps. And one of the things that I didn't like was one, how much effort it was taking for just to get a message. It just wasn't working. I was either not getting matches or not having conversations with someone. And I was like, this sucks. Like, my dream would be to walk into the cafe and somebody would buy me a coffee. Like that would be the ideal. And there was a way I was leaning too hard on that fantasy and not actually being open to anyone. And so finally, like something shifted probably a couple weeks ago where I was like, you know what? Let's just do dating as a verb. Dating as in like getting to know people, going on dates. Who cares who they are, if they like me or not? Let's just discover how to meet people, period. And so I did, right? I decided to shut down Tinder because it was just guys wanting to hook up, but like none of the follow through. I mean, come on. And then Hinge was a lot of really flaky guys. And I'm like, I don't like that. And so based on the recommendations of a couple of girlfriends, they were like, hey, Field is really good. Now, Field is known as like a polyamorous dating app because everyone is very sex positive on that app. Well, if you've been around a while, I talk about butt play on the internet all day long, like all the time. And so there is a degree for me where I'm like, I don't have the capacity to walk a guy through his sexual exploration when it comes to butt play. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not interested in being his teacher there. I would like a man who's like already totally comfortable in his own body. So moving over to Field was like, okay, that's kind of out of the way. And that was the experience I was having. So I was matching with guys. We were having really good conversations, immediately booking dates that felt like exciting to book. I had a date last week. The guy was all right. There was a couple things that came to light for me where I was like, oh, I actually don't want to be in a relationship with someone who has financial insecurity, which has got nothing to do with having money. It has to do with their relationship to money. So someone who's constantly panicked about money is like, it feels like someone's scratching me when I'm not itchy. Are you familiar with that feeling when someone's just like this, but like there's nothing to scratch? It's like, what are you doing? You're just irritating my skin now. And so I was like, oh, interesting. I actually need someone who's really secure. Duh. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a great thing that I learned about myself on that date. The next date that I had planned was over the weekend when I had to deal with Roxy. So I had to cancel both dates that I had planned. One was for Saturday morning breakfast and one was for Sunday dinner. And so I had to cancel both. I was like, listen, I'm totally expended. I don't have it in my range to go on a date. Like emotionally, I really need to take care of myself. What was beautiful about that was I had never really in the past like rescheduled to take care of myself. It wasn't a thing. But then flash forward to like, oh my God, I'm actually prioritizing this. Wild. The beautiful thing, because I prioritized it for myself and I was really open and honest with them, because really that's the end of the day, that's what we want. They were totally receptive to it, right? So one of the things that my mentors talk about is like men are perfect responders. So they'll respond to whatever distortions, whatever things you bring up to the relationship, they are going to respond to it. Would you be able to define distortions? We all have ways that we don't see ourselves clearly. So when you're in the dating world, the way a man responds to you is an opportunity for you to look at where you're not actually clean and clear with your communication. That's a distortion, right? It's like not the truth. It's like not quite the thing. And so the fact that I was open, honest with them allowed them to be open and honest and totally chill. Like there was no problem. The guy that I was supposed to have dinner with on Sunday rescheduled. He was like, hey, what are you up to doing this upcoming weekend? How's your dog? How are you feeling? Are you overwhelmed? Is there anything I could do? Super sweetheart. And I was like, oh my God, like, sir, let me breathe. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Now let's get into the topic that's actually on hand. Now that you're all caught up on my dating life thus far, right? So dates are happening. They're great. I'm excited. We're all happy. The date that I had last night was a guy I matched with last week. Really good looking by definition, like beautiful eyes, big beard, which we know I love. I love me a good beard. Taller than me, a thicker man, which like just check, right? Check all my preferences, the things I would prefer in a guy. He also like, money wasn't a worry for him. So check again, right? Like all of the things, except when we get into the conversation, we get deep real quick and like, I'm cool with that. It doesn't bother me. But I was more focused on, can I stay open and take nothing personally, which is a personal practice I've had for 2 years, and I'm getting better at it. Because when you open your heart, the world will fucking flip upside down in front of you, right? Like people's egos get inflamed, you get into fights, you get this, that, and the other thing starts happening. And most of the time what happens is women, in my experience, we take it fucking personal and then we close our hearts again. Oh, this guy doesn't like me. I opened my heart. I let him in and he doesn't want to stay. Close our hearts. Well, I knew that that's not sustainable for me, right? Like that's not the work I'm here to have. That's not the life I'm here to have. That's like just, there's something totally off about that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the practice of keeping my heart open and taking none of it personally. Doesn't matter what happens out there. As long as my heart's open, that's all that fucking matters. I can handle any reality that is in front of me as long as my heart is open. Cool, right? We're all on the same page. Throughout this conversation, what I noticed was there was periods of time when I could feel myself shrink, kind of involuntarily. And they would happen at different parts in the conversation, not super abruptly, but my laundry's done, very subtly. And in those moments, I was like, oh, because I was so in tune with whether or not I was open or closed, I was like, oh, I'm starting to close here. Let's focus on staying open. Because if I close, the conversation shuts down. That's when like the violence starts, right? That's where fights begin because he's responding to the closing rather than responding to me. I notice myself shrink, turn around, open again. Notice myself shrink, turn around, open again. Stay open no matter what he says. Stay open no matter what he does. Stay open no matter how he responds to me. Just stay fucking open because it does not fucking matter what happens outside of me unless I'm taking it personally. So we continue on this date and he's fine. The way that I'm experiencing him is that he's got some wounding, as do most people. And there's things that fundamentally don't match up for us. But for the very first time, I didn't feel angry about it. Because historically, that's what would happen, right? Like historically, I'd be like, oh my God, this guy, I can't believe he said that to me. You know what he said? Such a red flag. And we all do this, particularly as women. Such a red flag. Such a red flag. Oh my God, run for the hills. But I didn't feel that. But things that he was saying, I could tell that any other woman who had her heart closed would be like, this is a red flag. This man is dangerous. This man is this. But I didn't have that because I had full approval for who he was, where he was. Because who he is and where he is doesn't matter if I have my heart open and taking none of it personally. We're still on the same page, guys? Cool. Let me know if you're lost in the comment. And there was moments where like he would say something and I could feel this like internal spacious where I could like, this is what it felt like. It was like turning my head and seeing something distorted, something off, something not in alignment to me. Not out of alignment for him because I don't know him well enough to say that. Out of alignment for me. And rather than closing because it's out of alignment, just staying open and being like, oh, it's just out of alignment. First time I've ever not been victimized by a guy who's incompatible with me. Wait a minute. What? And the only reason why I'm saying this now is because I'm realizing it and sharing what I have been in my stories with you guys. Because I even shared a screenshot of a text he just sent me because we were having a conversation about how we're not really compatible and how we want different things and lifestyle choices are very different and whatnot. And he sent me this message that said, I just want to acknowledge how fascinating it was to have you feel so open and receptive, even after I delivered blow after blow. Now that text message that he sent me activated quite a few responses in my DMs. Yeah, obviously. Such a red flag. Oh my God. He just kept delivering blow after blow, even though he knew that it made you close and he just kept delivering them. Well, here's the thing. That's kind of what life does. Life is constantly testing if you're committed to your opening or not. How surrendered are you really? How open are you really? How attached to outcome are you really? Are you really committed to the truth within you, or are you committed to getting your way? How soft and surrendered can you be with yourself in the process of living life where you won't always get your way and you won't always be in control and you definitely won't be perfect? And so what I got was I'm like responding to messages in my DMs and being like, oh, culturally, we are used to being victimized by incompatibility rather than being grateful for it. Think about it. Let's say I didn't recognize that we were incompatible fundamentally on like the life choices we want, how attached he is to his, how committed I am to mine, whatever. That I could have started villainizing him for what he wanted. I could have started being like, ugh, so gross that he wants polyamory, and start judging his choices as if I give a fuck. Because again, if we're incompatible, it does not matter. He's not going to be in my heart to fuck other women anyway. It doesn't matter what choices he makes unless I actually want him above all else. And then I would have to question, well, why am I choosing him? Why am I choosing him when he's not of service to truth? Why am I choosing him when he would rather demonize spirituality and the feminine? Why would I choose him? I wouldn't. And so this is a brand new fucking experience for me because I'm like, I have no resentment towards this man. I have no anger towards this man. I'm just like, yeah, he's a different dude. And I don't see his red flags as red flags because I also know that I'm a red flag to somebody who's not aligned to me. And frankly, I'm probably going to be a little boring for the person who is, right? The person who is in alignment with me, I don't feel is going to be like totally rocked to their fucking core. Well, maybe they will be, but like rocked to the fucking core where they won't be open to my life. Like imagine, like guys, this will make sense when I explain this example. Imagine me dating a guy who is like anti-butt play. You all would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like you would hold me accountable to the truth within me that I would be abandoning just to date him, right? So it's a similar concept. It's like there are fundamental incompatibilities, and those are like the hard nose that like I won't date a guy with substance abuse issues. That was another issue for him as well. He's like his whole world is around psychedelics and synthetic drugs, and I'm like, yeah, no, not for me. Everything I do is sober, as emotionally sober as I can, because like that's probably my addiction, right? Emotional addictions, but like I don't want substances involved. And that was also like fundamental incompatibility. He wants his substances. Okay, go have your substances. I'm not going to tell you no. So as I'm sitting with this, and this also happened over the weekend with Roxy, where like people were like, oh my God, the veterinarian probably cut one of her arteries and now she's bleeding. It's going to be the vet's fault, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I actually feel nothing towards that. Because if it is their fault, shit fucking happens. Like there's this spot inside me and I can't quite explain it. It's like this certainty that it doesn't matter what human fuckery takes place outside of me because I'm not going to abandon this spot inside of me, right? Like the outside does not matter because the inside is just so fucking crystal clear. The inside is just so fucking certain that I'm going to be fine. My dude is out there. My life, no matter what rockiness happens, I am soft enough with myself that I can handle it. That it's like, does it suck? Sure. Does it hurt? Sure. But beneath all of that, there's also this like very constant hum. There's this very clear harmonic that it's like, yep, that's just the shit show of human existence. Incompatibility isn't something worth being victimized by. It's something to be grateful for. Because imagine I ended up dating this guy and I was totally blind to our incompatibilities and I didn't make a choice that was honoring of myself. And then all of a sudden I'm in this relationship with this guy who keeps fucking other women and is getting drunk and doing drugs when we have sex. Like there's just so much that just wouldn't work about that relationship. And again, I want to be clear. I am not a dating coach. I'm not a relationship coach. What I serve is harmony and radiance. And so therefore, everything in my life kind of also has to serve that. But I'm also really clear that I want a relationship in service to truth. And so a guy who's like super clear he wants polyamory, that's not a truth that exists in me. It's not something in my bones. It's not something in my belly. It's not certainly not in my pussy because I'm a highly jealous woman on my human side. And so there is this place of like internal harmony as acceptance of all things and clarity of your humanity. And if you're clear about your humanity, you're also clear about the differing humanity. And you could give a fuck less about them being different and needing them to be the same as you. And so how this is relating to the work that I do in Supple is in service to the opening. And the opening is opening to truth within you. So you can feel that resonant hum at the deepest possible layer and always turn that back to that, because that is the one thing that kept me sane this last week. Like even in the process of mass chaos and like my dog bleeding on the floor, that hum is what kept me low to the ground. It's what kept me from flying. It's what kept me stable. And it kept me responsive to the world around me. Same thing on the date last night. That spot inside me that was like, oh, he's not compatible. Oh, that's fine too. We're open, we're surrendered, we're totally accepting of his humanity. And that doesn't mean I'm a yes to him, which is something that fucked me up initially. Because one of the things that in my lineage of work that we talk about, it's like get off on every stroke. Well, I used to take that particular teaching and twist it. I used to twist it in forms of self-harm and continued self-abuse in the most fucked up ways. Because what I made it mean was that when someone is incompatible, that incompatibility must be my ego. And therefore, I have to silence the part of me that is clear. I have to silence the harmonic inside of me that knows what's true for me, that knows what's true in general, to be able to make this relationship work. So therefore, I required my willpower to gaslight myself into staying in a relationship that was simply untrue. You follow? This is the first time in my whole life that I'm not victimized by them not being for me. And it doesn't mean that like, oh, I'm better than them. No. It's just like, they're not for me. That's not my man. It's fine for him to be who he is. He's just not for me. The same thing happens with friendships, right? A lot of the women who go through Supple, it's like, fuck, I have some really untrue friendships. It's like, yeah, it's not that you're better than them. It's that they're not for you on your evolutionary path. If they were, they'd continue with you. I have girlfriends who I've gotten stronger with in terms of our relationship now because the relationship to them is true. They're going to be with me as I go through my evolution. They don't need me to be any other way because they're also connected to that deep internal resonant truth within them, that harmonic that we trot along together. There is this place of like release and replenish, release the attachment to outcome, to that guy being the one, to that friend being forever, to that job, to that circumstance, to that particular proposal, to that particular client, being totally surrendered and being like, if this goes, it's not for me. If it stays, it is. You know, as my teacher Perry Chi says, like, you can't fuck up what's for you. I'm sitting in the truth of who I am and having reverence for the nature of my essence. Then someone being incompatible is what I want. I want to be able to feel where they're not aligned so that I can stay open and receptive for the moment that the guy who is open and aligned or close to on the path can enter. I want to stay open, surrendered, and of service. So even if that client doesn't come in, I'm still serving. I'm still open to the next one. Right? This is something I say to my clients who run their own businesses, like serve to serve again, open to open again. Because if I'm busy saying yes to things that my body is a clear no to, and I don't want to say my body because my body also really loves toxic men. It's the spot inside me that I don't always feel 100% of the time. That spot is clear that it's a no. As long as I don't abandon that spot, I release, I replenish. I release, I replenish. And if you look up the definition of supple, it means fluid grace. It means to be flexible. It means to be unattached. Because my opening is not for anyone else. It is for me and my commitment to the truth. My surrendered being and embodiment to what I may not understand or comprehend yet. I am 30 years old. It has been 10 years since my last official relationship. It has been 5 since I had my heart completely shattered. It has been 3 since I let someone in my heart. And you know what? The only thing I regret is not opening to open again. How I constantly would feel my heart open and then I would collapse on the back end of it because I didn't know how to hold that pose. I didn't know how surrender was an active pose. I didn't understand that receptivity is an active pose. There was this idea that if I just lie back and I embody all of the things, that magically life will just happen for me. And it's like, the truth is, if you want to fall in love, you've got to leave the house. If you want a connection to source life energy, if you want a connection to the depth of your being, you have to be out in the world. Right? This is why even in Supple, I give the assignment of like, take it to stay. Go be out in the world. Because that is where the work happens. I have done years of isolation, years of not being out in the world through the pandemic, right? And even before that, I was very good at isolating. But there's a difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is of service. Isolation is only to help you close. I spend a lot of time in solitude, but I also spend way too much time in isolation. And if I'm going to be committed to this opening within me, it doesn't serve to stay that way, right? And so, you know, Supple is still open for enrollment, and I'm clear that there's still like 4 women who've been sitting on the outskirts of joining. And if you're watching right now, I want you to out yourself in my comments. Don't worry about the money yet. The money is always figure outable, but I want you to own that you have the desire to be in the container, and we'll figure it out from there. But I'm leaving the container open for enrollment because your opening will take as long as it takes. Your pace is not determined by a deadline. But your pace is determined by how surrendered you're willing to be to the truth within you. The thing you already feel, that harmonic that already buzzes at the base of your being that you have probably, much like myself, have learned to ignore and avoid rather than to stay inside of and commit to. Committing to that thing, that spot. Not overriding it, not dismissing it, not trying to be different than you are, but to be where you are as you are, evolving, unearthing your shit. Roxy, chill the fuck out, right? Don't you dare knock my phone in the water. My tatas will be everywhere. Yeah. So let me know in the chat right now what you're leaving here with. And if you're watching the replay, please let me know in the comments because Instagram is a little dumb and they don't let you see the comments afterwards. So what is landing for you right now? What are you hearing for yourself in my own journey? Because here's the beautiful thing. I am not an expert at being supple. I am not the authority of being supple. I am a woman who is notoriously hard and jaded and closed, who has spent years learning how to soften, learning how to melt, learning how to be with myself in places that are uncomfortable and I'd rather lie. I was very good at being very dishonest about my process, being very dishonest about who I am in moment to moment because it was shameful or scary or I didn't understand it. And again, it's not about understanding it. It is about being soft enough with yourself that you know you don't need to understand, that you don't need to know everything. You don't need to be perfect. It's just about feeling that harmonic within you and letting it lead because there's nothing that the universe would put in you that isn't meant to serve you. You can trust that thing, even if it leads you through hell, right? The whole line, the sentence is like, if you're going through hell, keep on going. You don't get the byway. You don't get a quick stop. It's scenic. It is long, but it is necessary as long as you're following the harmony within you to lead you through hell, out to the other side. Because those portals are so important. Like there's different spots in my life where I felt that, but it was never sustained. So in Supple, we focus on keeping the pose, understanding that there is always a natural collapse, but like, can we hold it wider this time? Oh, I closed a little bit, but I didn't close as much as I used to. Oh, I stayed open. Whoa, I blew myself wide the fuck open and now I'm contracting really fucking fast and it's scary. What do I do? Because you're going to do both. You're going to do all of it. All of your patterns of blowing all the way open, not sustaining that opening, destroying yourself, all the patterns of refusing to open and dismissing your opening, all the ways that you try to gaslight yourself out of the truth that you know, all of that is going to come up in Supple. And you know what? The frequency of the container is not going to shift it for you. You need to be out in your life doing the work to be soft, to be surrendered, to be present enough that it doesn't matter what your mind wants or doesn't want. There's always, it's this or something better. Okay? Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me as I'm in the bath, sweating it out in hell water, because that's the only temperature I bathe in. I'm going to allow myself to let the bath water drain as I allow my heartbeat to soften more before I make myself sick and dizzy, trying to get out of here faster than I prefer it. Because if you didn't know, the bath is actually a deep spiritual practice as well. And that's why I leave a private hydrocircuiting practice of learning the practice within your body, of not rushing your opening, of taking your time when there's a lot happening inside of your body, of just being gentle and being slow. Because slow has nothing to do with speed. It has to do with the quality of your pace and how you're moving through life. Where is your attention?